Alright guys, Arouge again, and today we're going over the digestive system part 2. When I last talked to you guys, we left off at the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine. Again, the stomach would be here. It's going to shoot the chyme into the small intestine. We have the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder, and let's see what their functions are. And again, we see that all three are connected right there. Let's see what the functions are of each one. The liver. The liver is responsible for, number one, breaking down toxins like alcohol. Also, some medications, or actually all medications, eventually get removed by the liver. The liver secretes, it actually makes, let's change that to makes. It makes bile, which breaks down fats, okay? The liver is responsible for making the bile. The gallbladder, which is this green sac right behind it, okay, that's where bile is stored. It's located just below, actually just behind the liver, and it stores and concentrates the bile, okay. Okay, next we go over the pancreas. The pancreas looks like the piece of corn, the corn on the cob, and it's located right behind the stomach. The pancreas produces what's called bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is very, very basic. It's an alkaline, and it neutralizes stomach acids. So just like I said that if the stomach acid goes up to the esophagus, it'll burn the esophagus. Well, your body has to handle that stomach acid when it goes into the small intestine. And when it goes into the small intestine, the pancreas will neutralize it. Also, the pancreas secretes additional digestive enzymes. Okay, so we're going to get more digestion occurring here, because the pancreas is loaded with enzymes. And also, one thing I didn't put on here is the pancreas secretes insulin. And as we mentioned before, insulin it decreases blood sugar. Okay? All right. Now, as we go further into the small intestine are beautifully adapted for increasing surface area. The more surface area we have, the better we're going to have absorption. Again, think back to the big picture. The big idea is take the molecules in your food and put those into your blood. The small intestine are made beautifully for absorption, for taking those molecules into your blood, and the reason why is because they have what's called villi. Villi are like these little finger projections. Okay, and if you look inside of each villi, or each villus, singular would be called villus, you would see that each one has its own supply of blood. Okay, now what's fascinating is if you were to get a microscope and zoom in on one villus, you would see that there's even villi, several villi, or I'm sorry, microvilli, they're called microvilli. You would see there's several microvilli on one villus. Okay, so it's like, think of it like having fingers on your fingers. Okay, and all this is to increase surface area, to increase absorption. Okay, now when we look at the three sections of the small intestine, we have the duodenum, which we talked about already. We have the jejunum, that's the middle portion, and the last portion is the ileum. Okay, and let's take a look at what each one does. So like I had mentioned, the small intestine, the duodenum is where most digestion occurs, because that's where those accessory organs are attached to. The jejunum, this is where most absorption occurs, okay? This isn't the only place that has the villi and microvilli. All the small intestine has it. It's just that this is where it's primed for absorption, okay? Everything's already been broken down, and there's a good pathway uninterrupted for absorption, okay? And then the last part, the ileum, this is the end, the part right before the large intestine, okay? So it's the part that right before enters the large intestine, okay? And the entire length is about 7 to 13 feet, okay? Okay, let's go over the parts of the large intestine. And then I'll tell you, I'll give you the notes on what each part does. So not shown in here, you would have your small intestine. Your small intestine be all in this area right here. The last part right here would be the ileum, okay? This is where the ileum would be. The ileum, again, remember we had most digestion here, we had most absorption here. The ileum is going to send the chyme, which is still very, very soupy. It's going to send the chyme through this right here. This is called the ileocecal valve. And this valve is, it's a sphincter, and it's adapted so there's no backflow. So that chyme doesn't go backwards. Let me go and clean this up a little bit. It's made so the chyme doesn't go backwards into the small intestine. It only stays into the large intestine, okay? Now, if you look on the large intestine is also called the colon, okay? You have this little worm-like structure, this right here. This is your appendix. And it used to be thought that the appendix had no function whatsoever, but now scientists believe, doctors believe, or they've actually shown that the appendix is a house, it's a home for good bacteria that we need, okay? So that's your appendix. It's this little worm-like structure at the end of your large intestine. This first part of the large intestine is called the cecum, okay? This is the cecum. Again, this valve is called the ileocecal valve. Why does it have that name? Because it connects the cecum of the large intestine to the ileum of the small intestine. Okay, so that's the ileocecal valve. If we go further, we're going to follow the pathway the chyme will take. We have the ascending colon. Ascending means to go up. We have the transverse colon. Transverse means across. Okay. Next, we have the descending colon. Descending means to go down. And then lastly, we have the sigmoid colon. Now, I remember the sigmoid colon because it's shaped like an S. Okay, it's curved like an S. Okay. And then lastly, we have the rectum and the anal canal. All right. Now, when we talk about the small intestine, remember the small intestine, we had most digestion, most absorption. So why do we need the large intestine? What's occurring there? Why is the large intestine important? Well, let's see. The large intestine absorbs the last bits of water and nutrients. So for example, remember, I said chyme is what enters the large intestine, and when it comes out, it's stool, okay? It's not all liquidy. Well, the reason is the large intestine absorbs the water. It pulls that water out, okay? Also, the large intestine is home, and this is actually very important, to good bacteria. There's bacteria that live in your colon or your large intestine that make vitamins for you. They make nutrients for you. And they're making those vitamins from fiber. Okay, so this is why if you ever hear that a diet high in fiber is good for you, this is why. Fiber you get from plants. Okay, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, anything that's a plant, that's where you get fiber from. And that fiber is food for that bacteria to make those nutrients for you. Okay, and also chyme enters the large intestine from the ileocecal valve. It's that special sphincter. Okay. And the large intestine prepares it for elimination by absorbing that last bit of water. Okay. Okay, and this is the last bit. I just want to reiterate the key chemicals for you. Remember, we had salivary amylase. That was the enzyme in your saliva that breaks down carbohydrates into sugars. You have pepsin, which is located in your stomach. That starts protein digestion. You had bile, which is important for fat digestion. And then you had bicarbonate, which neutralizes stomach acid. Okay. Again, this is not in any way all of the chemicals involved in digestion. This is just the very basic ones. There's lots and lots and lots of enzymes in your pancreatic juice. That's important for digestion. But we'll get into that if you ever take anatomy and physiology. Okay. All right, guys, that's it for today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.